Welcome to the Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of combat sports, the great Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how you doing?
Doing good, Ken. Got a nice haircut. Thanks for flying your barber in for that. I've always
Yeah, you look great.
always appreciate that.
My pleasure.
I tip him. I give him a tip, but we had a nice last weekend. We went. I don't know. You used to be around New York, and Rob, of course. Some great museums. The Museum of Natural History, one of the great museums of all time.
Oh, that's a good one for the kids.
We went there with my grandchildren, and last week, my son Teddy was in with his son, so we had them all together, and man, it was fun. It was great. And one of the things that struck me was, as soon as we walked in, one of the guards there said right away, "Teddy, love the podcast." And I always I wonder when somebody recognizes you in a museum of natural history, it just makes you wonder, A, the podcast is really getting big, or I'm getting really old. I mean, I'm being recognized with fossils. You know what I mean? It's just something about it. I don't know. There's just something about it. I looked at my kids. They said, "Yeah, am I a fossil? Am I getting close to being bones?" But it was really, it was a great day. Of course, my grandson Joseph, he knows all the dinosaur names since he's like 3. Oh, that's an Allosaurus. Oh, really? Yeah. They're carnivores, and over there they're herbivores, and like he knows them all. It reminds me of that spot in the Godfather movie, Ken, where the Godfather is talking to his son, who's going to be taking over, Michael, and he asks him about his son. "How's your family? How's your son doing?" He goes, "He's good. He's smarter than me. He's 5 years old, and he's reading cartoons." And the father says, 5 years old, he's already reading the funny papers. Ha, ha, ha. And I'm thinking, he read the funny papers, but my grandson is 5 years old, and he knows all the dinosaurs. he knows all the dinosaurs, and he knew him when he was 3. He knew him when he was 3 years old. But they all enjoyed it. I remember we went there a few years ago, and he got a little nervous because we went into the Tyrannosaurus. That's the main guy. We went into the Tyrannosaurus exhibition, and they had this audio thing, and this visual, and it looked pretty real. He ran out. he ran out. I said, "All right, we'll come visit the Tyrannosaurus. We'll go see the herbivores, and we'll visit the Tyrannosaurus next visit." And this one,
I took my kids when they were like 3 and 5 to or maybe 5 and 7 to a monster truck show. They were dying monster trucks. I said, "Okay, we're going to monster trucks in LA." Soon as the truck started up inside the Staples Center, my middle guy, who was probably either 5 or 6 at the time, was like, "Dad, I want to get out of here." I go, "Buddy, it just started." It was like in the afternoon on a Saturday. He's like, "I gotta go," and he was like starting to get emotional. And I'm like, "You sure?" And the older one was like, "Dad, I don't want to leave." I'm like, "Buddy, if he gotta go, he's gotta go. We all gotta leave." So there you go. Buy $500 for 4 tickets. For good tickets. See ya.
I've been down that road. I get it. Last thing I want to mention before we get to the fights is, over the weekend, just to show how well-rounded we are with all sports, I was watching the TCU Kansas State game. Great game.
Great game.
TCU was ranked number 3, I believe, and so they're right in the hunt.
Yep.
Well, they're going to make it now, but they were right in the they're in. But they were in the hunt for the 4 spots, for the college football playoffs, for the national title, of course. And they're playing Kansas State, and if they lost, you don't know, they might not be in, but they're in. But And they did lose. And they blew their undefeated season. And I guess, what was it, Pac-12, Pac-10 championship game, whichever one it is. But the thing that I couldn't understand, I'm watching, I'm not in any way pretending to be Vince Lombardi over here, but I know sports, I know common sense, and coming down in great comeback by TCU, great game, but in the fourth quarter, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it was, left in the game, they're coming down the field, and their quarterback single-handedly puts them on his back and takes them. I mean, he ran rough-shot all over Kansas State, the quarterback. He runs for 10, 20, 30, and then he gets down to the goal line, runs it in, touchdown. Then they need a 2-point conversion because they were down by 8. And what's he do? What do you think he does? He runs in the 2-point conversion. Fast forward to overtime. They're in overtime now. They get down to the goal line, right? They got 2 shots at the 1 yard line, whatever it is, 2 yard line. They don't let him run it in. And they hand it off twice and they get stopped. They get stopped twice. And I can't get it. I don't get it how the coach could do that. And then they lose. They lose on the next possession to Kansas State in overtime. And one other thing I want to say, because I put my finger on both sides. I point blame on both sides. I didn't understand really TCU. Obviously, they're well coached. They had a great year, but I just didn't understand the coaching there and the decision making there. But I didn't understand. Go back to the fourth quarter with 4 minutes left, and the quarterback of TCU, as I said, is running all over them, and the other team, Kansas State defensive coordinator, he doesn't put a spy on the guy. He doesn't assign someone to say, hey, he ain't running on us no more. Your job is just to stay with him, and he doesn't get another yard on it. And they kept running the same and they kept getting the same results. It was like insanity.
Well, two things that makes me think of is I think sometimes the coaches overthink it, and I'll give you a perfect example when Seattle is basically about to win the Super Bowl, and instead of just running it in with Marshawn Lynch, they try to throw a quick slant and it gets picked off in the end zone. Dumbest move of all time coaching. Insane. I mean, and then when you talk about the TCU quarterback running all over everyone, I think of that kid Caleb Williams from USC. They lost as well this weekend and cost themselves a trip to the Final Four, the playoffs. But my God, that kid was unbelievable. He couldn't be stopped, and he popped his hamstring supposedly in the game. He definitely got hurt. But my God, he did everything he could to win that game for USC. He looked unbelievable down the stretch in the whole season, but especially in the game. Who did they play in that?
Utah.
Utah. Man, tough
My
loss.
son goes
USC
out there a
loses and
lot.
gets bounced from the top
My
four.
son goes out. Yeah, my son goes out there a lot. He scouts out there, so he knows the Utah program well. Always tells me a lot of talent, and good people out there. Matter of fact,
you also don't get kids.
They're going to the Rose Bowl.
You don't get a lot of you don't get a lot of off-field programs at Utah with the big Mormon community out there. Not a lot of drinking, not a lot of trouble.
No, it's
BYU and Utah.
Yeah, that helps. I mean, you're right. That you got a built-in defense against a lot of that stuff, like a built-in babysitter. No drinking. Always
the opposite of what you'd get at Miami.
The opposite of atmosphere like Miami. Exactly right. Utah, dry state, as they say. But, it's funny. I'm going out to Utah in March because they asked me to go out there.
State.
Yeah, they asked me to go out there to speak. They run a big clinic out there, I guess, like a coaching clinic for the day, and they always bring in a keynote speaker. And they reached out.
Through the football program?
Yeah. And they reached out to my son and asked me if I would be the keynote speaker. So I think I'm going to say yes, because if my son asks me to do something, I do it. And
must be a big program if they can afford you $100,000 speaking fee.
Well,
congratulations.
Yeah, I cut it down a little bit. I cut it down quite a bit. Sometimes you just do things because you think it's the right thing to do, and you also have a son who's in football, and you feel that it's a good thing to do, obviously, for his relationships too, so you do that. But I am
One
blessed.
thing
I
you
am
should
blessed. I
ask-
have been
one thing
paid
you
for
sh-
these speaking engagements, so I have been blessed that people want me to speak to their kids.
The one thing you should ask for when you go to like UConn or Utah is a game jersey with your name on the back. I think that that's a cool thing to hang up in your gym.
Yeah, that's cool. You're right. You know, it's funny. Years ago, I went to Nebraska. Cornhuskers flew me in to Lincoln, Nebraska, to speak to the team, and I got a nice red Cornhusker jacket. Really nice. Really, warm and
That's
everything.
cool.
Nice, really nice jacket. If they would have paid me better, I could have bought my own jacket. But no, I'm just joking. But yeah, it is funny. I went to Syracuse years ago. Syracuse football team. I'm sorry. The Syracuse football team had asked me to speak to them, and I did. And it was funny. I made fun of myself afterwards because the coach, I'm trying to remember what his name, but the coach of Syracuse, that at the end of the year, they finished up good. They went to a bowl. And at the end of the year, he winds up getting hired in the NFL. I think at Buffalo. He went to the Buffalo Bills. I think his name was Coach Morrow or somewhere along those lines, whatever it was. Anyway, he gets hired after I speak. They do good. I'm not saying that's why they did good. But he gets hired in the NFL. Great, gig. And all I got out of it was a nice sweatsuit. But it was it made me think about when
I think I've seen it.
It's very nice, very nice. It makes you think about when your parents used to go on these trips, right? And they go to Atlantic City and they come back with a T-shirt. My parents went to Atlantic City. All I got was this cheap T-shirt, Yeah. So, but it wasn't a cheap sweatsuit. So it was really nice, really, really nice sweatsuit. And talking about sweat, let's get to work here with these fights that we want to make sure we bring to our fans.
Yep, before we do
Oh, by the way,
anything,
that coach that you talked about with Marshawn Lynch, that was Pete Carroll.
Yeah,
He
Carroll,
was a legend at USC, with the college.
Oh, yeah. Legend with the
A lot of
ladies.
people
Legend
forget.
with the ladies, too.
I don't know. I don't know nothing about that.
That's the word on the street.
I don't know. No. All right. I that's the first time I heard about. But I will say this. There's always a lesson in there. There's a lesson for the people out there, whatever it is that you're attempting to do and you fail. You know that old saying, if you don't succeed at first, try again. Well, Pete Carroll's a good example. He goes to the Jets, very young. They probably don't give him the fair amount of time, but they fire him after like 2 years, 1 or 2 years. And, again, it's not always fair in those things, but it is what it is. And he gets fired. What does he do? He doesn't cry. He doesn't give up. He doesn't get, discouraged. I'm sure he felt all those things. But all that matters is what you do. Not what you feel, people. Not what you feel. It's what you do. He went back to college, reinvented himself, if you will. Went back, didn't let his ego, talk to him in the wrong way. Well, and now you got to go backwards to college. No, he went forwards because he went and he got better. And he went to college. He created a dynasty at USC. And then off of that, what happens? He gets welcomed back years later to the NFL and he wins the Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks. So that's just a good, I think, a good lesson again for people to hear something like that.
Yeah, and along those lines, not just if you fail, try again, but if you don't fail, are you even trying? Like, if you're trying to do great things, you should expect failure, because if failure wasn't an option, it probably wouldn't be that challenging. True. So anyway, before
to that point,
we jump into
to that
things,
point, Counselor, I would say that, and it's a great point, a lot of people don't give themselves a chance to succeed by failing. That's the point you're making. A lot of people probably get confused by it. But go out there. Don't be afraid to try out for the team. So what? You don't cut it. You don't get it. Next time you will. But but you'll learn something from it. Yeah, it'll do something to you. It will improve you. It will motivate you in other avenues that you wouldn't have had a chance to be motivated in and to learn something if you hadn't given yourself that chance. But the point is, a lot of times, even asking for a raise from your boss or whatever it is, or trying for a different position or different, going into, a different trade or a different occupation that you're afraid to try it. No. Try it. You might fail. But you won't have a chance to succeed if you don't freaking try it and find out what you're going to find out.
I switched careers at 45 years old. It was the greatest thing that I've ever done in my life. I thank God every day that I did it. And yes, it's intimidating and it's very scary, especially when you have 4 kids. But once you bet on yourself, you'll never know reward like the reward you feel when you succeed, when you're doing everything on your own. Obviously you have allies along the way. And there's a great poem by Teddy Roosevelt called either Man in the Arena or Critic, but it summarizes everything. That basically you'd rather be the man in the arena, bloody and covered in dirt, than the guy sitting up in the stands who's scared shitless to even get in the arena, just pointing the finger and talking crap about how the strong man stumbles. Be the man. You're not
talking about some of all people out there that are in their underwears in their grandma's basement. Are you?
If they're talking negatively about us, yes. If they're talking positively, they've probably been bloodied and dirtied many times. Before we get into it, we'd be remiss if we didn't send out well wishes and warmest regards and prayers to the legend Diamond Dustin Poirier, hospitalized with a staph infection in his foot. I saw him post on Instagram this weekend that he had a big swollen foot. He had a little cut. It got staph infection rolling around in the jiu-jitsu gym, which is a common thing to happen, which is why they always talk about, cleaning up afterwards and keeping those. Same thing with wrestling. They're very strict
with that in the NFL. Crazy.
100%. Because listen, staph infection is not a joke. Serious. It gets into the cut and it spreads.
I didn't even know. God bless. I'll say a prayer.
It just happened yesterday.
Right now that he gets rid of that infection. Hey, if anybody could kick out an infection from his body, that would be Dustin Poirier. He would have to do is look at it and yell, "Get out!" And it's gone.
I saw he posted on Instagram that his foot was swollen. I sent him a text, say, "Yo, what's going on?" And he said, "Oh man, it's actually really hurts. It hurts, and I'm starting to feel sick." And he said, "I'm thinking of going to the hospital." And I said to him, "Dude, you have a kid and you're a professional athlete. If you think you need to go to the hospital, you're like 2 hours late." Next picture he sent me was, he's like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm in the hospital. They're keeping me overnight." And he said today, he's like, "Probably stay another day."
They probably put him on IV.
Yeah, he's on IV.
Yeah, well,
immediately. Yeah, of course. That's the picture he sent. So he posted it on Instagram, so I'm not sharing anything that's not out there in the public. But best wishes to the Diamond Dustin Poirier, the fifth member of our production team here. And Teddy,
get better, Dustin. And the great part of the part that he has that's great is he has a great wife and family that will obviously help him heal, help him while he's getting better. So get better, kid.
Yep. And Terry, let's jump into the action. But before we do, let's get it popping with Ollie Pop. They're a new unofficial slogan.
Poet,
get it popping with Ollie Pop.
Poet, you don't even know it. That's an easy one, though. Let's get it popping with Ollie Pop. I want to see them throw something more difficult at you, where you have to be a little bit more creative.
A little more creative. They should be probably trademarking that expression right now. But anyway, Ollie Pop, the healthiest soda on the market. It's something that I feel really good about sharing with my children. I drink one of these after every workout, and obviously I drink them during the podcast. This one is ginger lemon, one of my favorites. Only 2 or 3 grams of sugar, depending on the flavor you choose, compared with 39 grams of sugar in a regular full-fat Coke or Pepsi. This has got dietary fiber. It's got probiotics, prebiotics. It's got a lot of different quality ingredients, and I love this stuff. Excellent alternative to unhealthy soda. Like I said, I share it with my children, and we treat it as a reward. They all started doing jiu-jitsu, by the way, Teddy. I got 4 little killers, trained killers. Well, I've got the most dangerous house to break into in the country.
You don't need a watchdog. Just
I don't
beware, kids. Beware. No beware watchdog. Beware. Kids, vicious.
So after
kids ready to tear you apart.
Been going. They signed up last week, Teddy. They went every single day. My youngest son's like, Dad, when can we do a competition? I'm like, as soon as you think you're ready, we'll sign up for a competition. And he's like, how long will it take me to get a black belt? I said, about 10 years. He's like, I think I can do it quicker. He's only 5. He's only 7.
He will do it quicker.
But anyway, please check out Olipop. Go to drinkolipop.com. Use the promo code ATLAS. They'll give you 25% off. Please try this stuff off over the holidays, especially if you don't drink alcohol. This is an awesome alternative. Nice, healthy soda. Great flavors. They've got them all: orange, grape, ginger, lemon, classic cola, and vintage root beer, which is a good one. But anyway, drinkolipop.com, promo code ATLAS. Let's get into the action, Teddy. Big heavyweight fight. All the heavyweight title fights are big, but this one didn't exactly wasn't the most anticipated heavyweight title fight in the history of the world. Tyson Fury throws his man Derek Chisora a bone, gives him a third fight. They do it at was it at Tottenham Hotspur Arena? One of the football stadiums.
60,000 people. That's all I know.
60,000 people, Teddy.
And a little risky. We're doing it outdoors with this weather getting cold.
That's what I was going to say. It's December in England. They both came in practically in like winter coats. Derek Chisora had a gigantic fur King's cape on him, and they had blankets on them in between rounds. I just think December in outdoors is, like you said, risky, super cold. You got to come in super warmed up. You got to stay warm in between rounds, especially for those.
He would have been better off coming in cold and getting knocked out cold in the first round than taking the punishment he wound up taking.
Oh,
and
Chisora.
I'm not being. Trying to be...
No, you're just pointing out the obvious.
I'm not trying to be funny here. I'm being really serious that, usually you want the guy warm because if the guy don't have a sweat, if he's not warmed up, he could get caught early, he could get hurt early, but sometimes increases the chances of obviously what I'm talking about, a knockout. But in this case, he would have been better off coming in cold, getting caught a good shot and get out of there because, listen, I had said you didn't have to watch the fight. All you had to do was watch our show last week, and it was there. It was there. It was a retirement. It was the pension plan fight that boxing doesn't have a pension plan, and sometimes it creates its own. This time it created its own. Fury gave him a pension plan. He gave Chisora for 15 years of meritorious, service to the sport of being a warrior, giving us great fights. He gave him a gold watch at the door, and that gold watch was a big payday. But the price that went with that gold watch, that went with that pension plan, he might have been better off without it, because there is a price to pay for taking that kind of punishment any time in your life, but especially at 38 years of age, with that many miles on his odometer. And he would have been better served, again, if he got caught early and it was over, because he just kept taking punishment all night long. And you got to worry about him in the future. You do. And I love Chisora, and I love that he got the payday. But I didn't.
I was actually wondering if we could get him on in time to have him on here and talk to him, because he's a character and he seems like a lovely guy. But my God, did he take a beat?
He didn't. It bothered me. It bothered my...
Of course. It would bother anyone with a conscience. It was like, dude, it was so obvious. Fury couldn't find an opponent, and everyone kept, for whatever reason, the fights weren't getting made, and he literally called up Derek. He's like, Derek, you want to do it a third time? But Teddy, before you jump into that, can I just tell you, over the last 5 fights, listen to the people that Chisora has been in there with. So number one, the quality of opponents. Number two, you can imagine the paydays that he's gotten this late in his career. He's in with Usyk, loses. Joseph Parker loses. Joseph Parker again loses. Kubrat Pulev, he wins.
Well, no, he lost the first one with Pulev. You're right. He won the last one with Pulev. Yeah, that was the only win in the last
split decision. Though it wasn't. He was in a
lot of people.
All those fights, by the way. All those fights went the distance. He lost unanimous decision to Usyk, a split decision to Parker, unanimous decision to Parker. He won a split decision over Pulev, and then he got knocked out in the 10th of 12 rounds against Fury, meaning this guy's in like 10, 12 round slugfest that could go either way, taking beatings from, taking shots from a heavyweight That's some serious damage to be punching someone's head that many rounds over the course of, let me see, the first one, when I started that thing, the Usyk fight was in literally exactly 2 years ago. So in 2 years, he has 5 fights, all go the distance with the exception of the one that he just got stopped in the 10th, which you could argue is worse than going 10 rounds for a decision because he got pummeled. But my God, and then when they showed the video of Tyson Fury going to see him, I know that they're genuinely friends. Tyson Fury goes in to see him. Chisora didn't look right to me. The way he was talking, right. He was slow, labored. It wasn't right.
You got to really worry because these are the fights that do the real damage. You know, not usually the knockout, boom. It's the ones that drag on, where there's a cumulative amount of blows taken throughout the course of the night. And obviously...
And it's the kind of damage you can't see on the surface, right? What's happening inside his head.
And to both of us, what I started this about, damage to a 38-year-old who's already had damage, who's already gone in the ring and come out of the ring with less of himself. I always talk about that.
But to your point, when you talk about measuring chronological age for a fighter, you've said it many times that you measure that by miles on the odometer, not how old he is in years.
I'll be more specific, but how much, by punches.
This guy's like 55 years old by boxing age.
You measure it, Ken, by the amount of punishment, the amount of punches taken during the course of a career. That's how you judge the fighter's age. That's how, not chronologically. And in that way, instead of 38, you know, Chisora could be easily 68. Easily.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. It's the truth. And I mean, not only all those fights, Teddy, but as you know, I'm not telling you anything, but maybe you could speak on the amount of sparring that he has to do to take 5 fights in 2 years. He's probably sparring at least 2 days a week for 10 weeks leading up to these fights. That's a lot of sparring with heavyweights. And I've seen sparring footage of him where he's exchanging bombs. Like, he doesn't strike me as the type of guy that's in there working behind a jab. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, you're never going to mistake this guy for, you know, being a young Ali. I mean, you know, this guy knows one way, and that's why everyone loves him. He comes forward, you hit him, he hits you back, and he's, you know, he's going to keep coming. But fighters can suddenly get old in the ring, and you know, you just look one night and you say, wow, you know, I just saw him not too long ago. He didn't look like that. And that's what I thought. He looked old. It's like he got really old suddenly. And it's like the body, the rock can only take too much. You hit a rock, you hit a rock, you hit a rock, you hit a rock. And then one day it doesn't do nothing, doesn't move anywhere. And then one day you come by and you lean on a rock, Ken, because you want to rest. You know, you just did your 10 miles of running for that day, right? And you lean against the rock. And you fall almost because a piece of the rock just chips off. And that's the cumulative damage done to a rock. Well, you think it's any different with a person, with a human body, with a human skull? You bang, you bang, you bang for years, and then one day you get in there and the legs are wobbly. The guy don't look right. The guy's getting tap punches and he's wobbling. That day came Saturday night in London, and you just have to worry about the future for him. And that, you know, this is an unforgiving business, unforgiving sport, and so you have to worry about that. I'm glad he got paid, but I'm not glad he took that kind of punishment. I'm repeating myself now, so I'll move on. And
you know what? The one thing, though, I want to add, though, is the unfortunate or fortunate thing. I mean, I'm sure for Derek, he probably thinks the fortunate, but the unfortunate thing is these young up-and-coming, like, killers that are on the rise, they're going to view Derek Chisora as a great name to have on your resume. You know he's going to bring action. He's going to be there to get hit.
Well, that's where you have to have a parent in the room. Ken, to your point.
And now he's going to get these big offers, $2-3 million bucks.
You have to have a parent.
And it's going to be hard for him to say no to that easy money. But like you said, at what cost? At what point does that one shot too many? And God forbid something goes really seriously wrong with the guy. He's made a lot of money. I'm sure he's got smart people around him. Hopefully he's invested his money enough that he can like ride off into the sunset and not take that one fight too many that we've seen too many times.
That's where you need a parent in the room. That's where you need somebody in his entourage, someone in his camp, someone who's made money with him over the years that has a responsibility to look out for him now and say, okay, that's enough. Let's go. Let's pack it in, champ. Great career, great run. You know, you've given the fans everything. You've given us everything. Now we got to give you back. We have to look out for you. Let's move on to the next chapter in our lives. Come on. Let's go, buddy.
You hope he does that.
And I tell you, if it doesn't come from somebody in the camp or in his family, it needs to come then from commissioners, the people that are paid.
It ain't gonna happen.
No, but
that ain't gonna happen.
They're paid.
I know exactly what you mean, but we've just seen it happen time and time again. Money makes all the decisions.
They're paid. These guys are paid. These commissions are paid, supposedly, to look out for the fighter, to look out for the sport, to look out for... We know they do neither most of the time, unfortunately. But surprised me one time. Surprised me. Because you're taking taxpayer money in many cases, these commissions, to keep your position, to have your position, to get paid.
But Teddy, you know what's going to happen. If Nevada says no, some Indian reservation is going to say yes. California might say no, and Oklahoma says yes. We all know the states that do it. How many fights happen in Oklahoma where you're like, how the hell did this fight get made?
It was on Indian there's no real market for him over here. The market is over there. And
100%.
But you would just listen. You would just hope against hope sometimes, but you still hope that just a humanness can come out and somebody can make the right decision and say, hey, you got to protect some people from themselves. I know it's hard from a civil liberties standpoint. You know, I'm not a lawyer, but I know it's hard to tell someone they can't make a living anymore. But there has to be something in place in a sport like this, a dangerous sport like this. Look, they take your driver's license away when you can't see properly, right? They do. They say, no, you're a danger to yourself, you're a danger to other people. There has to be something in place in this sport and sports like it where when you can no longer be able to make the right decisions for your own welfare, where you're getting to the age and to the place we just described where there's a greater risk than before of getting hurt. Somebody, if you can't make the decision, somebody's got to step in and say, wait a minute, we can't let you go on here. And that's got to be connected with tests. I believe they should take CAT scans, especially when you get older. Take CAT scans, take MRIs on a more regular basis and compare them. Compare them. Don't say, yeah, this is okay.
That's a good point.
Compare them. Compare them to 6 months earlier, to a year earlier. Say, oh, wait a minute. We see some deterioration here. Hold on a minute. You got to use something.
They did that with Rafael Lovato Jr. in the Bellator, guy that Rob and I are friends with. He was the reigning welterweight or middleweight champion, and he went for a brain scan. They noticed an anomaly and basically told him, you can't fight. And then I think he might have got a green light, but his doctor said, like, are you insane? You have like these lesions on your brain that could be from getting hit in the head, and we don't think you should do it. And he never fought again. Was the reigning Bellator middleweight champion. Super nice guy.
Thank God. Listen, and the one you just talked about, there's many that don't get that. They don't get that 100%. Screening. They don't take that test. It's not mandated that they take that test. And you never find out. They go forward and God forbid something terrible happens. But anyway,
I'd say this one thing though. If Derek Chisora hears this, I hope he understands that this isn't like Teddy Atlas and Ken Rideout hoping that Derek doesn't get another payday. I wish he could get $100 million, but the point is, like, we like him, care about him, and he's taking big damage.
Because I do appreciate what he's doing. That's what I want. Yeah, no,
that's right.
And
people just looking out for his well-being.
Let me break down the fight a little bit for what it was. It wasn't competitive, obviously, and it was never going to be competitive. There was no way. But to make it even worse than everything that we just laid out was the style of Fury. You couldn't have got a worse style, especially at this point of his career. At any point for Chisora, he's a short guy. He's a guy that takes to get to you. He takes punches to get to you. That has to get close to you to land his punches. And he's a guy that only is one-dimensional and only knows one direction. Come straight forward. Very obviously predictable. With all those things being said, the style of Fury, you couldn't have picked a worse style because he's 6'8", he's huge, and he knows how to control the outside and do what I always talk about. And that was all you had to do. That was the game plan. You didn't have to be Teddy Atlas or the late, great Eddie Fudge or, Ray Arcel or, Angelo Dundee to know what the game plan had to be, or Emmanuel Stewart for that matter, if I'm speaking about great ones, former great ones. All you had to know was, hey, you control the outside and you hit him before he can get close enough to hit you. It's that simple. It's that simple. Or as I used to always say, where you control the outside and you make him go through a bad neighborhood and you mug him before he gets through that neighborhood. And that's exactly what he did. He controlled the outside, he being Fury, controlled the outside, used his jab, and then he moved back a few inches to keep that space, to keep that separation. So again, there was more territory that he had to continually walk through and take punishment to try to get to Fury, which he was never going to get to, not at this point in his career. So that's what happened. He controlled the outside smartly, Fury. And again, you didn't have to watch the fight. You could have listened to this podcast last week that it was a retirement fight. There was only going to be one end result, and the uppercut was going to be a big part of that result. And sure enough, just like he did with Dillian White when he knocked out Dillian White. Can you believe it? He knocked out Dillian White, and then a fight later destroyed him. And then a fight later, he's going to make millions of dollars fighting Joshua. But God bless the English fans. God bless them. They love their heavyweights. They don't care if you lose. They don't care. They back you. They make you millionaires. I mean, and listen, let me add one other note. Yeah, a nice gift that might have turned out to be not so nice by Fury. When you think about down the road with the punishment that he took that night, what it might entail, what it might lead to. But he did mean well. He meant well to give him a payday, a guy that he admired. But he also meant to make millions of dollars on an easy payday too. That's
100%.
I mean, I'm not knocking him. I mean, I don't.
No, but that's exactly what happened.
I mean, he gave a payday, and he got a huge payday. And to coin the phrase of the great Mayweather, easy money, baby. Easy money. And nobody knows better than Mayweather, because at 45, he's still doing it. And he'll do it at 65. Although what he's doing now isn't really boxing. It's picking these guys, for the most part, over in Japan. Picking a guy and then playing around with him a little bit and getting whatever millions of dollars that they're giving him. And listen, I'll finish this part of it with this. I'm not begrudging this to Mayweather or to Fury. They earned it. Anytime you get in that ring and you risk yourself and you risk that you're not going to come out of that ring, or you're going to come out of that ring with less of yourself, guess what? For a career of that, Mayweather, God bless you. Keep doing it. You deserve it. I just don't want no one to get hurt. And with him, no one to get hurt, because it's I'm not saying it's choreographed, but it's more controlled. But in a case like Chisora, somebody will get hurt and does get hurt.
Well, the Fury thing is different. He's already fought Chisora twice. Like, give some young guy a chance if you're just taking an easy fight. Fight Daniel Dubois. Fight one of these other guys. Dubois was in action earlier, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But I'm glad Derek got a payday for everything he's given the sport. But man, like a third fight, it was such a foregone conclusion.
No, 100%. And look, I'll finish with the breakdown anyway, because the fans come here to get the breakdown. I think you know it already. It's pretty obviously, couldn't be clearer. But great job by Fury. Not a hard job. I get it. But controlling the outside. You knew that you were going to run him into an uppercut. He's a short man. He's going to walk into an uppercut. He's going to lean into an uppercut. He did. He also hit him with straight right hands. And you know what else he did? He doesn't do it a lot. Fury, when he would make Chisora miss, which he was going to miss a lot, because, he's reaching to get in. He can't navigate that distance as well as he used to when he had younger legs. And when he reached with the right hand and left a little opening, Fury filled it with a counter left hook, which he doesn't always show you. And he finished, he filled that hole, that space, with a nice counter left hook that also, helped set up the other punches. He knew exactly what he had to do. He executed perfectly. Here's where it gets different from the fan knowing the obvious, where maybe this isn't quite as obvious, although I thought it pretty much was to a certain extent. I think he might have carried him. Now, he might not have done him a favor by carrying him, as we already went over.
Exactly.
Because of the punishment he wound up taking in the onslaught of the fight. But I think he might have carried him a little bit. And if I'm a lawyer in a courtroom, like my daughter, here's Exhibit A. Exhibit A, he wasn't sitting down on his punches. He was just slapping them out there like practicing combinations. That's Exhibit A. And Exhibit B would be a little more tricky, where nobody pointed out. He smothered himself a lot of times. Now, look, I know you could say, well, Teddy Fury was being responsible. He was smart. He was tying him up on the inside. No, there were times he had him hurt, and he kind of fell in, smothered himself, where he couldn't keep the offense going. Now, that gave a reprieve. Obviously, that gave a rest, to the onslaught that Chisora was taking. And that allowed him to exist. That allowed him to survive. That allowed him to take more punishment. That allowed him to go more rounds. But why did he smother himself? I'll tell you one thing. If I want to stop the fight, if I want him to end it, which, his good trainer said, Emmanuel Stewart's nephew said, he wanted him to stop it, then keep the range. Don't fall in. Keep him at the end of your punches. And when you get that offensive flow going, like you hit him with the uppercut, you hit him with the left hook, you hit him with the straight right, keep that offensive flow. Keep the faucet on. Don't turn the faucet off by smothering yourself. That's what he did. He turned the faucet, the flow of the water, the flow of the punches. He turned it off by smothering himself. So I have to think, did he do that purposely, or did he do it that it just happened, whatever. But that's why the rounds were extended, I believe, because he took something off.
I agree.
He didn't sit down on the punches. He smothered himself instead of keeping that range, that distance where he could have kept the punches flowing. And also, I didn't see the scorecards, but I'd be shocked if there wasn't a few 10-8 rounds, and there could have easily been knockdowns. Matter of fact, they could even scored them as knockdowns, because there was many times there, Ken, where he hurt him with the uppercut, hurt him with the right hand, and Chisora just was in a drunken state. He was in a drunken state, and he just stayed there like frozen, and Fury would fall into him, and they would fall on the ground. But those could have easily been judged knockdowns. And to me, they were knockdowns, because he hurt him with the punch, then he fell into him with his body, and he fell down. But what a little wind, if they would have had a little breeze in that open air stadium there, that would have knocked him down. So there could have easily been 3-4 knockdowns in that fight. And again, for all intents and purposes, let's say he got knocked down 3-4 times. The referee probably would have stopped it earlier, and it would have saved him a lot of damage. Here's my point. By not having the knockdowns, the referee don't think that way. He don't see the collateral damage. It doesn't strike him right away. You know what I mean? It's not in his face. So he's not scared, where he might think, these refs are human, where he might think, oh my God, he's been down 3 times, 4 times. I better stop it before somebody criticizes me. But being that he wasn't down, he didn't have that hanging over his head, that pressure to stop the fight. So he would have been better off if he actually went down to the ground, so the referee would have had been moved more, had an excuse to stop the fight. So I think that all needs to be brought out, and that's what you're going to get here on this broadcast, is you're going to get a peek at all that stuff. I think that played. Also, I think that there could have been more compassion from the corner, where I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying that you've been down a road with this guy. You're responsible for him. You know what I mean? He got to a point where he couldn't win anymore. There was nothing on his punches. He couldn't get inside. He has to be inside to win. He he couldn't win anymore. Like, at that point, I just thought that I wanted to see a little compassion for a guy you made money with, a guy you've been down the road, a guy you've done a lot of things with. Look out for him. Just look out for him. He can't look out for himself now. Look out for him.
You could see that Chisora almost seemed relieved. He made a comment after the fight about that, like that, almost like he was glad that the ref decided to step in and stop the fight.
I'm sure
like
he
Chisora was like, not only did he not protest, he was probably like, thank
but
God
that's
for
a
the
good
ref.
point. That brings me to a good point, because sometimes what happens, people don't like to hear this, but you're going to hear it because it's the truth. Sometimes a fighter, a warrior, a warhorse like this kid, this man, sometimes they don't get looked out for. They get beaten. They don't have it no more. And they're taking such a beating that they wind up having to almost do it themselves and quit. And it's not in them to do it. And you should never let it become in them. You should never let them get to a point where after living that kind of career, that kind of life, behaving that way, living up to that kind of code of conduct, of behavior, you should never let them get forced into a position where maybe, and I've seen it, where maybe a great warrior has to quit because the corner's not doing the right thing, or the referee. Again, the ref could have stopped it too. The referee's not doing the right thing. I mean, it's almost the case where the doctor could have stepped up there and said, hey, you know what? This is enough, guys. Or a real commission. I seen Larry Hazzard do it down in Jersey, where a real commission, maybe you got to be careful with that stuff. I get it, because then you got to worry about who's allowed to step in there, and maybe it could get dicey. I get it. But at this point, somebody needed to be the parent in the room, to be the compassionate one, and just say, hey, you know what? That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. So, and again, thank goodness he didn't get to a position where Chisora himself had to just say, I can't take it no more. Because he didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve to go out that way. But anyway, that's the breakdown. Bad style. Bad style. Forget about all the other things we just touched on, but just a bad style anyway. Obviously, it's the third fight. He never obviously got close to beating Fury, even when he was younger. First, he lost the decision. Then his last time against Fury, he got stopped. Actually, the corner stopped that one, I believe. But this one, they didn't stop. So, who knows?
I like the call out after the fight when Fury's screaming for Usyk, and Usyk jumped right up there on the ring and just stared at him as Fury. Credit to Fury as a promoter, because I don't think he means 99% of the stuff he's saying. He's screaming at him, calling him bad names, and Usyk's just staring straight at him. And almost at one point was like licking
eyes?
his lips like he
How
was
about
looking
those
at a
eyes?
steak.
You see those eyes?
He's the
I
best.
mean, those eyes.
And then Usyk takes out his phone and starts recording it like a selfie. And after the camera's off them and the tension's off, you see them shake hands, almost like, hey, good job out there, like two wrestlers
I want to throw
in the
this
WWE.
in there. I don't know why I'm throwing it in there, but
yeah.
I do know why. Because I like to make people cognizant of such things. They see these fighters, they see how ferocious they can be and how tough they are and what they have to go through, and how animalistic some people would say, wow, these guys are animals, And again, in the sense that you're applauding how tough they are, in the sense that you're not calling them an animal in a way that you might call someone else an animal. You're calling them an animal as far as respect of how ferocious, how tough, where they take themselves. But I happen to know Usyk as a really, really, and a lot of them are. But in this case, I want to say a really good family man. I know him. He happens to also be very religious. But for all that stuff and the fighters and everything they go through, and you see those crazy eyes and everything else, I figure I should point out that I know that about a lot of the fighters. But in this case, I personally know that he's a tremendous family man. And you look at those eyes and you wouldn't think it, because when you look at those eyes, what do you think about? You think of Jack Nicklaus in The Shining, where he takes a hatchet and he goes through the door and he says, I'm home. Hey, honey, here's Johnny. So, I mean, I get it. So I figure, you know what? Let me deter that vision, that visual, and let me put out another visual that I happen to know, and another fact that I happen to know, that Usyk is a great family man and a great human being, as many of the fighters are. But I think we covered that fight pretty damn good.
Yep, just real quick, I just want to touch on one of the undercard fights there. Was Daniel Dubois was in against Kevin Lerena from South Africa. Kevin comes into the fight at 28-1 with 14 knockouts. But again, as you would always say, who has he fought? So you look down the list, oh, the record looks nice, 28-1. Wow, this guy could be the real deal. Never had a fight outside of South Africa, so you think, what's the depth of the talent pool in South Africa as a country just on heavyweights? And you start to get an idea that maybe this guy isn't what he's supposed to be. But in the first round, he catches Dubois with an equilibrium shot on top of the head and gets him off balance and gets him on Queer Street, and he knocks him down 3 times in the first round. And credit to the ref for recognizing that Dubois wasn't really hurt in the sense that we like to think where, oh my God, this guy's taking sustained damage. Dubois gets his act together, comes back out. I'm going to interrupt you.
Thank God that he had a green guy who never really wasn't what his record would purport him to be. That he wasn't a higher level, because a higher level guy probably would have got rid of him.
100%.
Thank God he was in there with the right guy. You know, if you're on his side of looking at things. Go ahead.
100%. So the opponent wasn't as much an opponent as they thought, or maybe he was, and he just landed an equilibrium shot, and to your point, couldn't close the deal. He lets Dubois hang around. Dubois gets him out of there, blasts him out in the third round, knocks him out. Maybe a little quick on the stoppage on the other side, but I always say, like, hey, that ref was probably like, oh my God, what's going on here? Like, guy was supposed to be an opponent. I really believe that the ref's aware of everything that's going on. Soon as he sees the other guy, Lerena, in trouble, he waves off the fight. Maybe it was a good call, maybe not, but I think the fact that he had Dubois down 3 times gave the ref as soon as the ref had an opportunity to wave it off, he waves it off. Otherwise, like leading a sheep to the slaughter, they want to see him get like destroyed. They give him a chance to get up and get knocked down again. I really believe that's part of the equation. So Dubois survives, gets the knockout. Very lucky ref didn't stop it in the first round, and very lucky he wasn't in there with a more dangerous guy that could have really hurt him while he was off balance and like trying to get his bearings. But one quick thing I want to point out, it's funny to me when some of these the play-by-play guy, in this case Joe Tess, who's not an analyst but just like the color commentator, he said,
stop saying you make me these people Tess. I mean, can we just say the name? If you're going to say don't say the name, just say the commentator. But you know, sometimes you hear these things, it makes me think of Driving Miss Daisy. Remember that movie, Driving Miss Daisy? I think her name was like Miss Tess. Hey, Miss Tess, where are we going today, Miss Tess? I think we're gonna go and we're gonna pick some dandelions. Maybe we're gonna go down the shopping center and we'll get something down there. I mean, I'm sorry, I digress. I'm sorry. Anyway. I should be better than that. I show a little tiny bit of my human shallow points at times, and I don't mean to. Please forgive me.
Well, anyway, it's funny. Joe Tessitore says, oh, he got clipped on the top of the head. And when you get hit with a shot like that, it really leaves a ringing sound and a ringing sensation or whatever.
Teddy At, where you? Because they know I wouldn't allow it, first of all, and I would. Plus, it doesn't work as well. I would say, where you at? Hey, Teddy At. Yeah, where you at? Where you at? Where you been? Where you going? Where we at? Please continue.
Well, it's just funny to me when you get a guy who like clearly has never been a boxer starts describing what happens when you get hit on top of the head and how the equilibrium gets knocked off. And all I can think is like, is that what happened to you, Joe, the time that you were in Tough and got clipped with an equilibrium shot? Nevertheless, to your point, I digress. I just thought it was funny commentary. But Dubois survives that, gets the win, stops him. I know you had a chance to look at the highlights there, if not the whole fight. What'd you think?
No, you covered it well. You could be checking your plumbing too, and you could get your equilibrium knocked off too, Ken. I'm just saying. I'm just
getting the cleaning supplies from underneath the sink.
I don't know what he was doing under that sink. I have no idea, and I'm not trying to find out what anybody's doing under their sink, other than getting cleaning supplies, hopefully. But sometimes you get up a little too fast under that sink, and what happens? There's pipes above your head, and you know what can happen. I think
you get hit on top of the head and knocks your equilibrium off.
Exactly. All you have to do, if you're wondering about the referee a little tiny bit, Ken, this is all you have to do. I'm going to ask you this question. You can answer it right away. Do you think that if, rather than a home country fighter, in this case Dubois, if instead of him, the outsider, the guy who was brought in this case,
Kevin Lerena.
If Lerena was in that condition, the same condition in that first round, is there any chance on earth that referee doesn't stop it?
0. After the second knockdown, if not the first, it'd be waved off. Just like he waved it off as soon as Lerena went down in the third. There was no way the ref wasn't stopping that fight.
You don't have to go to the courthouse. Come right here. Come right here, people. You don't need to go out in the cold and go to the courthouse and hire a lawyer. Come right here. There it is. That's the case. Open and shut case. And it's the truth. But listen, all the credit to Dubois for the heart he showed, the Constitution, for getting up. And yes, when you get hit on top of the head, you get screwed up. It lasts. Your equilibrium behind the ear, it's very similar. Maybe Rob gets this one up. Rob, get this one up for the fans. I think it's perfect. Where Mike Tyson, when he won his first heavyweight title against Trevor Berbick, unbelievable.
Oh, it's a good one.
It's a good one.
Yeah,
he hits him on the forehead.
Poor guy.
And the rest is history. I mean, the guy goes north, south, west, east. He visited the second row, the third row. He was seeing how the ushers were doing. He was looking to see if they had any peanuts left over in the aisle behind them.
He was doing the moonwalk.
He was doing the moonwalk. I mean, he was everywhere. Look at that. Rob's going to get it up for you. Be reminded of that. One of the most dramatic knockouts ever, as far as seeing that kind of stuff that went with. Dramatic and sensational was bang. The guy's out. He's gone. I get it. But this one was had all the stuff that goes, all the theater drama that goes with power sometimes, where it's really, really put on display, where a guy hits you where it doesn't look like a huge shot. It looks like he grazes you on the forehead, and then the guy looks like Pinocchio before the legs got nails put in him, where he could stand a little straighter, you know what I mean? And before he had those sticks and strings that were pulling Pinocchio up. But the interesting thing in that first round too, Ken, that the commentator, nobody really got on too much, was he gets hit on the equilibrium, then he gets hit another shot, and about 2 seconds, 3 seconds later, there's a delayed knockdown. Nobody really talked about that. Like, he didn't get hit, and then he goes backwards, and literally like 2 seconds transpire, and then he falls down. That, you don't see that a lot. But I've seen it before. That's a delayed knockdown. That's when somebody's screwing with the electric work in your head. That's when you know that there's short circuiting going on there, and that's why it's so impressive that Dubois found a way to get out of that round. Really. Found a way to get out of that round, and then he comes back in the third round. I guess it was the third round, right, Ken? And he lands a beautiful straight right hand that I don't think beautiful, right? Split the guard of Lerena, splits the guard, drops him with that, and then, which was, I thought, very impressive, was he's got his wherewithal, his wits about him, where he goes after Lerena gets up. He gets him against the ropes. He opens up, looks to finish him, which he did. He finished him. But what I was really impressed was after all these things we talked about, how hurt he was, how selective and proper he was with picking the right punches, because he finished with the perfect uppercut. I mean, see, I look at it as a trainer. I say, not that he just jumped on and kept throwing to the guy fell or until the referee stopped it. He jumped on him after he dropped him with that straight right hand, and he puts a few punches together, sets him up, dresses him up, and then places a beautiful right uppercut that drops him and ultimately ends the fight because he gets up, but the referee stopped it. And look, he was hurt. Lerena was hurt, no doubt about it.
Definitely.
And he probably would have got stopped later on, a few seconds later, if he let it go.
But to your earlier point, if that was Dubois that hurt, they would have let him go out, get knocked out of the ring.
100%. Because
been asleep before they
proved that in the first round. I mean, it's not Ken and Teddy saying this. I mean, we're saying it off of what the body of evidence is. Yeah, he would have got dropped. They might have helped him up a little bit, who knows? But they definitely would have let him continue. They did not let Lerena continue. They stopped it. It was an interesting, exciting fight. I want to finish up with one last thing about the Fury Chisora fight. I mentioned before anybody really was mentioning him for the last year about Joe Joyce. Right, Ken? On this air. I've been saying this guy's a player. This guy's got a chin of granite. He reminds me of a younger Foreman, although I got to be careful with that because he is 38 years old. But Joyce reminds me of George Foreman when he was in his first life, if you will, before the comeback. In his first life, just a big guy, a ponderous puncher, concussive puncher, not a snappy puncher. Boom, you're gone. Like getting hit with a baseball bat. I mean, just concussive, as I used the first word. Blunt, just a blunting type puncher that does damage. He's big. He's relentless. As I said, he's got a great heart, great chin so far. I've been calling for this guy to be in there instead of some of these other guys to get the shot. And to the credit of Fury, he called his name out. You know, he brought him up into the ring. He gave
Did you like the way that Joe Joyce?
I love the respect.
Joe Joyce jumped up on the ring with Usyk and injected himself in, so Fury had to say his name.
No,
I love it. No, it was
you're
excellent.
right. Fury's no dope. He had to say his name. You're right. But Joyce made the most of his moment. He has to, because nobody's talking about him. So he
was sitting with Usyk at the fight, which was interesting. I loved it. Usyk is like friendly with everyone.
He's great. He's great, that guy.
You can't dislike him. He doesn't talk crap. He just shows up and handles business.
He's great. But I like Joyce too a lot, and I've been, like I said, I've been singing his praises for over a year on this show, and I'm glad that he's getting the recognition, that he got shouted out. You know, he shouted himself out a little bit. He threw himself in there. But then Fury did the right thing. He brought him, you know, he called his name and he talked about him and he gave him that spotlight that he deserves. I'll finish with this, and I said this before on our air. I'm sorry. I don't want to see Dillian White and Joshua. They're going to make millions of dollars. The fans are going to come out, you know, even though he's only one fight removed by being destroyed by Fury, he being White. And even though Joshua's lost 2 times in a row to a smaller man, they're going to come out and they're going to fill a huge stadium. But I so much would rather, I don't want to see that Joshua with him. I'd rather see him with Joyce. But he's not going to,
or Wilder.
But Joyce, or I'd like to see Joyce with any of these guys, but rather than give another chance to Wilder, who's had his chances, made his money. You know, I'm not saying he can't make more, but give that chance to Joyce. He's earned it. He's earned it. And again, if you want to put Joyce and Wilder, wow. to see a stick of dynamite set underneath the chin of Joyce to see if it can handle that explosion, and if that would be something. But again, Joshua, I mean saying if that's like saying, you know, that old saying, right, Ken? You know, if my aunt, you know what I mean, would be my uncle, because there's no way on God's earth, no way that Joshua and his promoter are getting within. They wouldn't get within a 10-foot pole of Joyce in that boxing ring. No way. But anyway, I'm glad that he got his shout out. I'm glad that he made the most of his moment there. Anyway, what next? What next, buddy?
Let's talk the trilogy with Román Chocolatito González in for fight number 3 against Juan Francisco Estrada. Estrada gets the majority decision, and again, another like very tightly contested contest. Estrada got the last win via split decision. Meaning basically won. I think it's important to point out the difference for some fans between a split decision and a majority decision. In a split decision, one judge has it for one guy, 2 judges have it for the other guy, the ultimate winner. And this fight was a majority decision, meaning one judge had it as a draw, and 2 guys had it as a win for Estrada, making it a majority decision versus a split decision. So Estrada gets the win, majority decision. These guys have fought 36 rounds. They're basically as close as you can get for 2 fighters. You know, one round, 2 rounds, either way in every contest is made the difference, at least in the last 2. How'd you like that fight? The first 2 fights they had, by the way, were like candidates for fights of the year, just like fireworks all night long. This fight I didn't think had the same drama. I thought Estrada basically won the first, I think swept all 5 of the first 5 rounds, and then Chocolatito, who's a little bit older, came on in the second half of the fight and took the majority of the rounds there. Chocolatito's 35 years old, but he's been in 51-4. Interestingly, he has 4 losses, but only to 2 guys. He lost to the Thai fighter.
He's a monster. That Thai fighter's a monster. He was a monster.
Yeah, he's got a different. His official name is listed as Wangak, but it's like I don't even gonna try. But it's the Thai fighter, Suring Vise.
Your mom didn't raise any
name.
fool. You're not trying that one. I want to go back for 2 seconds. I took the time to circle it in red magic marker that my grandson left me. And I just want to say it's just one sentence pertaining, of course, to the Fury and Chisora fight. And I made a note to myself after the fight. And I want to read it to all our fans out there, because obviously this is how my mind thinks, and sometimes how our hearts beat a little bit. And I think a lot of people probably feel the same way. I wrote this to myself. I just don't want to see old men tortured in a ring. It's not good for the soul or for the sport. I just had to say that because I thought it was worth. If I thought it was worth circling it, obviously I thought it was worth making sure I said that to our audience.
For sure.
They know where I'm coming from and where we're coming from. Anyway, Chocolatito Estrada number 3. First thing that struck me, good crowd, just like we saw all day long, Ken. You know, great crowd at UFC that night, great crowd in London, and a real good crowd here too. You know, not what London gets, but a good crowd.
Glendale, Arizona.
Yeah, and great Latino fans, great boxing fans, period. But great, I just want to give that shout out that. We got great London fans. I always give them that great shout out, how great they are. But the Latino fans, tremendous. So, Chocolatito's been around. I think the first thing I needed to point out, I mean, for the part that or at least emphasize it, is that he's been around fighting at the top level for a long time. And it's really amazing to me, Ken, when you think about it, that he could do what he's done for so long and with the style that he fights with. You know, it's not like Mayweather. And I'm not knocking Mayweather. I love Mayweather. But obviously you take less wear and tear when you fight that kind of defensive style. And not the case when you fight this kind of style where you're always coming forward. You're the shark in the water. You know, you're always looking. You're the predator. You're always looking to get to that prey, and it entails more punishment. And to have that style, and it's a fan-friendly style. Although I love Mayweather's style too, but it's a different kind of style. Some fans love it. It's kind of like I often make where I equate and make the analogy with baseball, where some people want to see home runs, other people want to go and see a great pitcher who knows how to control the batter, who knows how to hit the corners, who knows how to change speeds, you know, who knows how to do all that, who knows how to disarm, to take the bat out of the hands of a great slugger. I understand the taste for different, you know, it's up to the person, the individual. But most fans love the style of Chocolatito. And this is a guy who was at one time pound for pound number 1, number 2 in the world. And again, to have this kind of career where he's 35 years old, how many fights? 56, whatever it is, 57, somewhere in that neighborhood.
55 fights.
55 fights. To have, and now it's 56, I think. But to have...
That was the 50-50s. Now his record now is 51-4.
So to have all those fights, that longevity at that level, you know, like you said, he's only lost to 4 guys. He ain't, you know, he's not fighting like the old timers would say. Now I'm not. They use the phrase tomato cans, but I don't want to call any fighter tomato can. Anyone who could get in that ring, they're more than a tomato can. Or they could come out of that locker room, walk up those steps, and face what they have to face. You got more than most people have working for you right there. But these are not you know, they didn't take them off the street. You know what I mean? They didn't go and find doormen, down on Park Avenue and say, hey, you want to make a few bucks? Although those doormen probably would say no, because they're doing pretty good. But I remember promoters back in the day on local promotions where a guy, they lost a fight. They lost, the commissions were different, the rules were different, the standards were different, all of that. But they would lose a fight during the day, Ken, and they would go out and they would go in the neighborhood to the basketball courts and look for somebody playing basketball, figure he was in shape, right? And say, hey, buddy, you want to make $500 tonight? Yeah. What do I got to do? Come with me. Come with me. See if these fit. Yeah, that really happened. Unfortunately, in some states, it still happens. But that's a conversation for another day, all right? But
I think there's also stories back in the day where a fighter's manager would get in and fight him for when a fighter fell out. I'm trying to think what book I read that in, but there's been stories like that where...
I know one, Don Elbaum, a legendary promoter, he's a friend of mine. He just got in the Hall of Fame recently. He's one of them. There's a few of them. You're 100%. But the point we're making here is to have the longevity that Chocolatito has at the level, not fighting doormen, not fighting guys off the basketball court, you know, fighting top guys with the style that he fights with. Wow. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And to the point that I was making in the Fury fight, a guy does get old. And I thought he got old. He fought a great fight. Don't get me wrong. It was a great fight. It took him a few rounds to get his engine going. He was sitting in the driveway like a car that was just idling in the driveway. Wasn't going nowhere. And he lost the first few rounds. But then, once he got the engine going, he got on the highway. And he got going. And he does what he does. Brings the pressure, tries to weigh you down, Chocolatito. Keeps coming, goes to the head and body, and places good, hard punches. Gets in position and places good, hard, accurate punches. Now, He blew a lot of early rounds. But before I get into the real X's and O's and the pure analysis of the fight, he, again, it wasn't the same Chocolatito. Yeah, I know he's a slow starter. He was even slower this night. That's got to do with age. I'm going to differentiate a little. I'm going to qualify something here. Everybody, it's easy to say a guy gets old. I'm going to do it a little different. Chisora just got old. There's two forms of old. You can physically get old, which Chisora did, or you could mentally get old. I think there was a combination. I think there's a little something of the physical going on with Chocolatito. Not so much, because he did go out there and fight a hell of a fight, but a little bit. But I think mentally, when you fight this kind of style, where you put that pressure on yourself, where you're always the man, you're always the guy taking a risk. You're always the one taking that hill like the Marines. You're the one who's going up that hill. You're the one who's coming forward, taking what's coming at you, putting yourself in peril all the time. When you have that kind of style, it takes a lot to re-energize, especially as you get older, to keep the tank fueled emotionally, mentally, to keep fighting that style. It gets tiring. It gets old. And I think that was part of it. I think I saw Chocolatito mentally get old. Like, not only do I want to, can I get myself to fight with that kind of ferocity, with that kind of passion? He did, but it wasn't easy. And I saw, again, a differentiation of physically old, mentally old, where you just, to continue to ask that of yourself. No, I'm using the wrong word. Demand that of yourself. To mandate that of yourself. To say, yeah, you gotta go get him. Yeah, kid, you gotta go get him, kid. Yeah. Maybe it comes a day where you don't feel like you gotta go get him anymore. Where you gotta be convinced. And I think it took some convincing. Some talking to himself. That was part of the slows. Now, the commentators would never go there and give you that. And I'm not knocking them for it. Because they except for the former fighters, most of these guys have never been, really in that kind of situation to understand what we're talking about. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be a fight in the ring. It can be just a fight in life. Dealing with having to get yourself to still go. How about that father who goes out there and he breaks concrete? Now, since he's 20 years old, 25 years old, right, to take care of his family, he breaks concrete with one of those jackhammers, and he's doing that, and he's doing it when it's really hot, but he's only 25. Then he's 35, and it's really hot, but he's 35. Then he becomes 45 or 40. And it's cold and hot, frigid days out there, and your hands are bleeding and cracking, and your bones don't feel the way they did when they were 25. And you still got to go out there and do it because you still got bills. You still got rent. You still got gas. You still got all that stuff. You got food for your family. You know what? I'm sure that father has to talk to himself for a while as he gets older to get out there, where he's physically getting old, but he's mentally getting old. So it doesn't have to be in a ring to understand what I'm talking about, to have felt those blows, if you will, to have felt that fight, to have been in that fight, to understand what that fight's about. It can be doing other things. It could be going to the courtroom, for years and years and defending your clients in whatever kind of law you're in. And then after 10 years, 15, 20, whatever it is, whatever that number is, then all of a sudden, I got to keep doing that. I got to do it at this level. And I got to talk to myself to want to do it. Not that I can't do it, but to want to do it, to want to defend this guy, to want to defend these things still. Are they still as important to me as they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago? That's a question that comes like a left hook, like a right hand, like a body shot. So whoever's been in these fights, you understand what I'm talking about. And I just thought that Chocolatito, who's been in these fights, he understands what I'm talking about, I bet you. And if you get to that place, it's time for somebody to say, hey, let's go off to the sunset now. You earned it. That's not wait too long, like you talked about earlier. That's not wait too, and we've seen them go too long. We've seen the alleys to Joe Frazier's. Although I don't want to, you don't want to see those. You don't want to see that. You don't want to see a great man not great anymore, broken that way. I didn't even want to see Willie Mays when he was in a Mets uniform, when he couldn't go out there and do his famous, I love Willie Mays, where he did his famous basket catch like this with his hands around his belly, and he caught it. And where instead of catching it, he dropped it. And I was out there. I went to Shea Stadium, and I was like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. And even as a kid, I remember somebody said, well, kid, you got to see Willie Mays. And you know what I said, Ken? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. That wasn't Willie Mays. So you just wish that you could wish it for these guys to get out at the right time. You wish that you could. But he got the engine going. He started putting there was a point in the middle of the fight where it looked like Estrada was going to dominate him. And then the great Chocolatito, with all the things that he has that exist in him, you know, his makeup, he just started going. And then he started to make it look like an old Chocolatito fight, where he was going to wear down Estrada, where he was going to break Estrada maybe, where he was going to, you know, get to him. And it was a really good fight. It turned out to be a really good fight. I thought there were moments there, just like I thought in a Fury breakdown, where Fury was pulling on his punches a little bit, where Fury, because, you know, he was carrying a guy, where he was not pushing on the gas pedal, if you will, stepping on the gas pedal. I thought there were spots where Chocolatito and Estrada were almost too friendly. And they are friendly. They went on a vacation together. These guys respect each other. They're friends. And I thought I was seeing a little of that, especially from Chocolatito. A little bit, where he was almost like a sparring session. But then they shook that off, because they became what they are. Freaking warriors. And then that has no room for friends. Friends come later. Friends come later when it comes to being a warrior. That gets forgotten real quick, and the warrior part takes front and center. And they behave like they behave. Like, I got to defend my territory. I got to defend my, this is what I do. I got to defend my territory, and I got to honor my code. My code, not to the sport, but my code of conduct to myself. And they got it on. But I did see some of that. And then Estrada was the more, I don't want to say more dimensional, but he was. He's the more dimensional fighter. Estrada won the fight by being able to use his legs and his combination. His hands were faster. His legs, of course, were better, but he used his legs in a different way than Chocolatito does. Chocolatito's style is to use his legs to go forward. Estrada is to, he'll fight with you. He's a proud son of a gun. He's from that warrior tribe, if you will, that these guys come from. But he'll fight with you in spots, and he'll box in spots. He did both. And he's got faster hands. I thought what won the fight for Estrada was close fight, and then Chocolatito tightened it up late. But what won it for was his legs and his quicker hands and his ability to put punches together, his quick combination punching. Now, Chocolatito landed the cleaner, harder, more telling punches, which got him some rounds. But at the end of the day, Ken, for me, what it was Estrada being able to box on the outside a little bit, fight when he had to in spots, put combinations together, use the legs to get some separation and, to keep Chocolatito a little off balance in spots. And then to steal rounds down the stretch where he would flurry and late in the round where Chocolatito had probably won the round. It reminded me a little bit of Sugar Ray Leonard with Marvin Hagler, where Leonard, remember that, Ken? Where Leonard would steal the last minute of the round, maybe a little bit. Leonard's great, I love him, and I love Hagler. God bless him. God bless him up there where all the champions go. Marvin, you were great. That was a close fight. A lot of people thought Hagler should have won it. I thought Leonard fought a hell of a fight. That's all I'll say. He fought a hell of a fight, and I love Marvin. I love them both. But there was spots where Leonard smartly flurried at the end to maybe grab it from the judges. I thought Estrada smartly flurried at the end of some rounds that might have been going the direction of Chocolatito, and he might have pulled them into his direction. I didn't get the commentators when they were saying Chocolatito has complete control of this fight. I didn't think he had complete control. He was taking control. He needed to because he was behind. But where they said like he just took over the fight, complete control, I would have argued it because of what Estrada was doing. At the end of the rounds, again, he was flurrying to grab back something that he might have been almost ready to lose. He was grabbing back some of those rounds. I thought that at the end of the day, I wouldn't have argued a draw, but I thought that Estrada probably deserved it by a couple rounds. By a couple rounds. He probably deserved it by a couple rounds. At the end of the day, again, Chocolatito. It was a great 12th round, by the way. Great 12th round. And if it had come down to that round, which it didn't because two of the other judges gave it fairly handily to Estrada, 116, 112, something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. But obviously it would have made a difference with the judge that had it a draw, that last round. For me, that last round, if it did come up to that to win the fight, Estrada won it because he pulled it out. It was a great round. Great round. And again, Chocolatito's trying to place the harder punches. But Estrada, I thought, grabbed that last round towards the end. As he may have grabbed other rounds, as I've been saying, towards the end. But all said and done, terrific fight. Terrific fight by two warriors. You gotta respect both of them. You gotta admire and appreciate both of them. Estrada just a little faster, legs, his jab more consistent. I thought Chocolatito could have used the jab more because it's important to use the jab when you're the guy coming in to blurry his windshield, put bugs on the windshield, like I would say. Make it harder for him to dominate you on the outside, to stabilize him with that jab. I thought Chocolatito could have used it a little more. I thought he could have went to the body more. He went to the body, but I thought he should have went to the body more because there's no better way to take the air out of somebody's tires or the legs, which Estrada those were his tires, the legs. There's no better way to deflate them than to go to the body. So I thought he could have done more of that, but he made it a close fight. When early on it looked like he was going to be dominated, he turned it around. It looked like he was going to break down. Again, later in the fight, it looked like his pressure was going to do what it used to do, what it did for years, Ken, break down Estrada, but not at this point in his career. And credit to Estrada. But not at this point in his career. He didn't have enough petrol. Maybe mentally, too. Maybe mentally. But probably also physically to really pour it on the way he would have had to pour it on the rest of the way. But a terrific fight.
Yeah, great fight. Those guys always deliver. Let's jump over to the UFC and bang through this fight night card on the Stephen Thompson, Wonderboy Thompson, and Kevin Holland undercard.
If you tell me to bang through, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bang through. No, yeah.
I know you do.
I'm going to bang through.
Let's start with the heavyweights, the ever-entertaining Tai Tuivasa in tough against Sergey Pavlovich, who's 17-1 as an MMA fighter. Let me see what his last 5 wins in the UFC, all first-round knockouts. Good Lord, Derek Lewis. You set him up, he's knocking him over. He destroys Tuivasa in about 1 minute of the first round. How'd you like that one? How'd you like the boxing from Pavlovich? My God, he was putting shots together.
Yeah, I call it more slugging, but I got you. Rock'em sock'em, but Pavlovich, of course, the better guy. But here's what I have to say first. My son Teddy, who's been a scout in the NFL for 14 years now, he's been watching fighting since he's in diapers. So he has a little bit, I would say, of knowledge, my daughter too, but a little bit of knowledge about the sport and instinct about the sport. You know what he said to me before this fight?
What's that?
He says, comes up to me, Ken. He says, Dad, well, he actually doesn't come up to me. He was here last week. But he calls me on the phone. He says, Dad, I think Tuivasa's taking this fight too soon. It was only 3 months ago that he fought Gane. He got knocked out by Gane. Took a lot out of him. And Dad, like you always say, there's still ghosts in the attic. He hasn't removed those ghosts. 3 months not enough time to remove those ghosts. I think that he's taking this fight too soon. And I think that if Pavlovich jumps on him, he's going to get rid of him. Oh, my goodness. Why didn't I call my bookie? Why didn't I immediately call my bookie, Ken? And immediately. And he was right on the button. And I'm going to take it further. I think that Pavlovich was on the button. What do I mean by that? That he recognized what my son recognized. That, yeah, this guy just got knocked out by a huge guy, Gane, only 3 months ago. And you know what? It's not enough time to recover. Not physically, maybe, but mentally. It's not enough for those ghosts to have been exorcised, if you will. For those witches to be out of the belfry, out of the head of Tuivasa. So if I jump on him and don't give him a chance to breathe, or a chance to gain confidence, or a chance to do an exorcism, a chance to get rid of, to have a round or two, to get rid of those witches, I think it's going to be smart to do that. And he was smart to do that. He did that. I think that plays in. I mean, if I was a commentator on UFC, and they got the best commentators in the world, if they got the best in the world, but man, I would have loved and they are great, John Anik and DC and Bisbang, all of them, Rogue and all. But I would have loved to have just said that before the fight started. Just to say, hey, do you guys think, you guys know best, you've been in this cage, do you guys think that those ghosts from Gane are gone yet? Because if they're not, Pavlovich might want to jump on him and make sure that those ghosts show themselves. And he did. And also, there's a saying, I tweeted this, my great tweet team, Ian and Brennan and Rob, I tweeted this. Brennan's been working overtime. He's been working overtime. He has. But I said, and sometimes these old axioms come to play, where that old saying, Ken, live by the gun, die by the gun. Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Yep.
Live by the wide punch, die by the wide punch. Live by the haymaker, die by the haymaker. That was part of it too. Tuivasa came in there, his style, haymakers galore. Boom, boom, big wide punch. Guess what? When you miss a haymaker, you leave yourself open. And Pavlovich, to his credit, took advantage of that. He was a little more contained. He was a little bit more deliberate. He was even though he went right after him, but he knew what he was doing. He was a little bit more buttoned up in his punches. And when Tuivasa missed those big shots, Pavlovich didn't. And you know what? We were talking earlier about the Dubois fight over in London, getting hit on top of the head. We're talking about the Tyson fight when he hit Trevor Berbick on the temple. Pavlovich hit Tuivasa on top of the head. One of those punches really took him out of there, really messed him up, was on top of the head, one of those shots. And now you're talking about, now with a 10-ounce glove, you're talking about with a 4-ounce pad instead of a 10-ounce glove, right on top of the head. So I'm impressed by Pavlovich. He got the job done. I think he took advantage of maybe knowing that this guy was coming off a knockout loss. If I jump on him, he might be susceptible or more susceptible. He jumped on him. Again, he was more buttoned up. He was tighter with his punches. Tuivasa missed. Pavlovich didn't miss. He came right back, caught him. And I'll finish with one last thing about Pavlovich that I really like. I always talk about the great Joe Louis, one of maybe the greatest finisher ever in the sport of boxing. Pavlovich has a little Joe Louis in him. He's a good finisher. Once he had him hurt, he was not allowing Tuivasa to get to that next round. No way, Jose was not doing it. He and not just only wild punches, but very, very, very placed, deliberate in his own way. Even though he's going out there 100 miles an hour, there's still a deliberateness that you can have when you're going 100 miles, where you know where those punches, where you want them to go. That you still have that mindset. You know, there might be 100-mile-hour winds swirling around you, but you're in a pocket of your own calmness. Just like a great lawyer, just like a great doctor, just like a great teacher in a classroom, just like a great trainer in a corner, just like a great fighter in a ring or an octagon, where you're calm in an uncalm environment, where there's fire all around you. There's winds all around you. Crazy. Chaos. But you're not chaos. You're calm, you're contained, you're controlled, and that gives you a big edge. I saw that quality in Pavlovich. I can't wait to see him and Gane. It's going to be very interesting because Tuivasa had Gane hurt, Ken. He had him hurt. Gane was the more sophisticated fighter, and he's terrific. And I think he's learned a lot and developed a lot from his loss to Ngannou, our friend, Ngannou, the heavyweight champ. But he did get hurt by Tuivasa early, Gane. And yeah, he's going to be the more sophisticated guy again. He's big. He's got the ability to use the outside, the legs, to do so many things. He's technically so damn good, besides being so strong and so big. But if Tuivasa could hurt him, Pavlovich could hurt him too. And if Pavlovich hurts him, he's got a better chance of then taking him to the next place that Tuivasa couldn't take him, to that place where you can get rid of a guy. Anyway, that's that fight.
Very good. Before we get on to the rest, I want to take a minute, Teddy, to just give a shout out to our friends over at Athletic Greens AG1. Give them a shot as your preferred daily vitamin, if you will. I take this stuff first thing in the morning. It mixes super easy with about 12 ounces of water, 1 scoop. Boom, all the vitamins and minerals that you need in one-stop shop. With Athletic Greens, you don't need any other vitamin supplementation for all intents and purposes. I consider it like an insurance policy for my health and immunity system, especially if you're on the go, if you're training, if you're traveling. The travel packs are invaluable. If you go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas, ATLAS, they'll give you 10 free travel packs with your first purchase at athleticgreens.com/Atlas. to take advantage of the opportunity. This stuff has everything you need. 75 whole food sourced ingredients, vitamins, minerals, probiotics, prebiotics. It's got it all. Even if you're eating the healthiest diet, you still want to make sure you're getting all the vitamins and minerals your body needs on a daily basis. It's almost impossible to get everything from food alone, although I do think of food as nature's vitamins, especially fruits and vegetables. Do the right thing and take care of your body like your life depends on it, because it does. athleticgreens.com/Atlas. 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. All right, Teddy, our friend.
Hey, Ken, you know what you remind me of?
Tell me.
Not what you think I'm going to go down that road. No, it's not the guy from The Price is Right, or or the guy with what was the other great show that used to be on
Wheel of Fortune.
Let's Make a Deal. Monty Hall.
Yeah.
Let's Make a Deal. No, you have a good voice. You're very smooth. You're doing this stuff better and better. You're great.
Thank you.
And more importantly, you believe what you're saying, and because you do believe it, because you're trying the stuff that we're putting out there and you're using it. But I was going to go a different direction. You remind me of the fighters, the real fighters from the day, where they used to be asked a question, hey, what do you think about, you're worried about the judges? And the fighter would say, these are my judges right here. You see these two fists? These are my judges right here. You are that guy with your legs. You get to, I think that, and it couldn't be more complimentary, where you go to a race and someone say, well, what do you think? You think about the course, the weather, in this case, it's not judges, but what do you think? What do I think? I think about these two guys right here. These two guys. That's what I need. That's all I need. And I think that's the lesson we try to kind of put forward, both of us, when we do these shows. That's all you need.
Yep.
The fighter used to say, that's all I need. I don't give a damn about the judges. I don't care how they look. This is what I need. And we say the same thing to the people out there every time we do this, every week. All you need is yourself. Your belief, yourself. That's all you need. That's all you need. Let's get to that next UFC fight. I think it's Schnell and Nikolai, whatever it is, right? Is that it?
Yep,
I don't know.
Yep, that's exactly right. Our friend Matt Schnell, former guest of the show, was in tough against Matthias Nikolai. You're always in tough in the UFC.
I was trying to help him. No, nothing against Nikolai. Nothing but respect. He's terrific. But I was trying to help Schnell. I put out a tweet. My team corrected it, but I put out an erroneous tweet. I don't like erroneous tweets, Ken. I don't like erroneous tweets. I don't do it, but I did it. I put out by mistake. I was too hasty, whatever. Maybe subconsciously, subliminally, I was thinking about our buddy Schnell who came on the show, and I put that he dropped Nikolai instead of it being Nikolai who dropped Schnell. But my team corrected it, put it right back up there. But maybe it was a Freudian, that old Freudian slip where I was wishing, and nothing against Nikolai, but maybe I was wishing that it had been Schnell, but it wasn't Schnell. Nikolai, he got rid of him. Go ahead, set it up, and then I'll tell you what I saw.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Matt Schnell in tough. Like I said, you're always in tough when you're in the UFC, and Schnell gets knocked out, unfortunately, in the second round. Really one-sided on the receiving end of basically a one-sided beatdown. Looked like one-way traffic for all intents and purposes. How'd you like that one?
Yeah, Nikolai dropped him several times, and then he finished him. He caught him the way, again, here we are again. I can't believe it. It's like this episode is about all the punches on the back of the head or top of the head or behind the ear. He finished him, caught him coming in. It's always nice when you can catch a guy when you catch a guy coming in, obviously you can do more damage because you're not only got the ferocity of your punch, but you got the velocity of the guy's head coming forward. Both of them colliding and doing even more damage. But Nikolai did a great job of timing him with a right hand counter as Schnell was coming forward, and he caught him behind the ear. And as we been talking about earlier in the podcast. Those punches are damaging and debilitating because they take away your equilibrium. It's one thing you get hit, you shake it off. But these you don't shake off. They stay with you. Kind of like a liver punch to the body. Those you don't shake off. They stay with you. They remind you. Like 30 seconds later, you think it's gone. And meanwhile, your stomach looks up, your liver looks up at you and says, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still hurting you. I'm still hurting you. I ain't going nowhere. Yeah, I'm still bringing pain. You're not over. I'm not through with you. I'm not through with you. So, perfect punch behind the ear. A lot of damage. Good, impressive performance and knockout by Nikolai.
Yep, that's pretty much all you need to know on that one. In the co-main, Brian Barberena in with Rafael Dos Anjos. Dos Anjos, I feel like he's been around for about 30 years, and Barberena was on a bit of a winning streak, was looking good, climbing the rankings, and Dos Anjos just so dangerous on the ground, jumped on his back, slapped in a rear naked choke, and got him out of there in the second round. How'd you like that fight?
Yeah, all about, as I always say, all about the geography you need for your skills, right, Ken? Yep. That's what it was about, as you just said. Dos Anjos, he got that geography, on the mat. He looked like, it's funny. He looked like a one-trick pony, but guess what? That one trick is pretty damn good. It's great, actually. And the only one he needed on this night, that's for sure. The thing that stands out to me, besides his obvious skills on the mat, he's so calculating and deliberate about what he does. He mounted Barberena at the end. He got the rear naked choke, submitted him. I always talk about, when doing the analysis of a fight, especially preliminary, I talk about how important it is for a fighter to know his identity, and then I sometimes will segue into the great Clint Eastwood, where I use from his Dirty Harry movies, where I use a line from there. A man must know his strengths and his limitations. And that's what you have to be as a fighter. One of the most important things. It seems so basic, but it's not always that basic, or that it is basic, but not always that simple. Where some fighters are at a point early in their career, they don't know their identity. They're not sure, am I a guy that goes get you? Am I a guy that counters all night? Am I a guy that mixes them up? Am I a guy that looks to get, side moves and get angles? What am I? You got to know what you are. And obviously, Dos Anjos knows his identity. And that's the thing that really I walked away with. This guy knows exactly what he is, and takes you right to where he has to take you if he can. And he did. He took a very tough, strong Barberena right to the mat, and that was all she wrote. Next.
Yep.
Next, let's bang him.
Barberena was on a 3-fight win streak, but Dos Anjos put an end to that. Main event, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in with Kevin Holland. Two of the nicer guys in the sport engaged in a totals kickboxing match for the entire fight. I think Kevin Holland was trying to be entertaining and didn't want to take it to the mat, where I think he may have had a bit of an advantage, but chose to stand on his feet even when he had the opportunities to get on the ground with Wonderboy, and ended up paying the price. He gets basically stopped at the end of the fourth round. I think if my memory serves me correct, they got stopped him on body shots. He was just wearing him down all night long. Kevin Holland, just tough as nails, took a beating. How'd you like the stand-up work from both guys, but in particular Stephen Thompson?
No, you had to love it. I tweeted, at least it made me, not that I didn't know anything that everyone didn't know, but I tweeted that it's going to be an explosive fight. It was. Mm-hmm. Holland, who's a wiry guy, good puncher with the right hand especially. Wiry guys get a lot of leverage. he hurt Thompson in the first round pretty good with the right hand. And then Thompson, he won that first round. Then Thompson evens up 1-1 by winning the second round. Thompson was in a southpaw stance, and Holland did the right thing. Right hands usually land against southpaws, and I call him the southpaw killer sometimes. And Holland went out there, again, first round, drops the right hand on Thompson in the southpaw stance, hurts him. Then Thompson comes back, and for a while there, it was like a battle of the southpaw left hand of Thompson versus the right hand of Holland, back and forth. They were there because Thompson was doing a hell of a job of zeroing in with his left hand. The one thing that I want to say before I go deeper, Holland was the favorite, and Thompson's 39 years old. Looked damn good for a 39-year-old. He looked good for a 29-year-old. Forget about 39. But Holland was the favorite. And one of the things that really we've brought to light, and it's apparent if you're not living with your head up in the clouds, if you're honest with yourself, that it happens much more in UFC. It's not like that irregular to get an upset in the UFC, but it is in boxing. In boxing, you don't get the underdog winning nearly as much as you do in the UFC, because the UFC, they test and develop their fighters. You could have 8 losses, 10 losses, 4 losses, 2 losses. It don't matter. You've been in there with the best. You learn how to fight, and you're ready. And you know how to behave like a fighter now. And you know that you can depend on yourself. Very important. Very important. And a lot of times, these fighters, in boxing, that's the big difference. They're given cannon fodder, like feeding time at the zoo. So it's going to be no upsets, really, except, when you get way down the road in boxing. But at these kind of fights, you very rarely see upsets in boxing, but you see them all the time in the UFC. Again, because these guys are developed, these guys are forged in the fire, and their steel on their blades can withstand. It can withstand a pounding. It can withstand hitting against other steel. And, I know I beat this drum a lot of times, but in boxing, you'll get some of these guys where they're not tested. Their record is great. Like you just talked about the guy who fought Dubois over in England. Great record. But who had he fought? He hadn't fought anybody that got him ready for Dubois. That really got him ready, even though he came close to knocking him out. That really got him ready for what was coming. And the UFC guys, they get ready. They get the fights given to them, forced to fight, mandated to fight, no layups, no slam dunks, that get them ready. And then if the champion in boxing is not ready because he fought a lot of doormen, if you will, right? A lot of quick order cooks. And now he's got to fight somebody that is ready to do what fighters should always be ready to do, to go into the deep waters, to take the undefeated fighter into the deep waters, not to be intimidated, not to be, beaten before he even gets to the ring, to know that he's fought tough fights, to know that he can handle what's in front of him. If that champion, if that undefeated fighter who's been protected hasn't had any of those fights, it can crash down real fast. And you don't see it crash down on these UFC fighters when they get there. You don't. You just don't see it. I mean, you take a guy like Khabib. Now, Khabib's special. I get it. He's a legend. He's iconic. One of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. There's a few of them. But he was fighting guys, monsters like Dustin Poirier and all these. I mean, one after another. He's fighting all these. So when he got there, he was ready to stay undefeated, ready to act like a guy who was on the throne, and to keep that throne. So I just had to go there. It was an upset, 39 years old, doesn't matter. Thompson upsets Holland. Back and forth early, and then it was all Thompson. The difference in this fight was Thompson's ability not only to strike with his hands, but his feet, his legs. That was the difference. He was explosive with his hands and his feet. Holland mostly with the right. Now, Holland hurt his right hand. I don't know to what extent, but it definitely hindered him in the fight. There's no doubt about that. These guys don't complain. They're warriors. They're samurai. You find a way. And so it takes nothing away from Thompson. Nothing away. But Holland's hand, the right hand, did get hurt. And I don't know if we have a report on to what damage it was. But it definitely, we saw a picture of it afterwards. It was swollen at the very least. At the very least, bruised badly. But Thompson, the big difference, explosive with his hands, explosive with his feet. I've seen fighters go to the body and the head with their punches. I've never seen a guy go to the body and head with their legs the way that this guy Thompson does. I mean, he's like the way Mickey Ward goes to your body with the left hook to the body to debilitate you. This guy does it with his legs. And then goes to the head with them. Goes up and down like Mickey Ward would go to the head, then the body, the head with the punch, with the left hook. This guy does the same thing with the left foot. It's crazy. He is so damn dangerous, so explosive, being that he has those two weapons, legs and feet, at his ready, at any moment where he could strike you with a left hand, with a jab, or with a kick. That was, for me, that was the big difference. There was a low blow that slowed the action for a minute, that stopped the action for a minute. I didn't see the low blow. They showed the replay a little bit. I didn't see it as really a low blow, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter because it didn't change anything. Because after they came back to fighting, Thompson went back to taking Holland apart. And I tweeted this, and I couldn't help it. That is really what they mean by this saying, kicking the crap out of somebody. I just couldn't help it because he literally kicked the heck out of Holland with his feet. And there is one interesting thing to this fight that I think is not as simple or basic or obvious as what I just pointed out. That's all obvious stuff. That's black and white. That's tangible. There was something intangible that maybe was part of it. You touched on it, but I'm going to touch on it in a different direction, different dimension, where it looked noble, and it was, of Holland not to take it to the floor. Maybe stupid. Maybe it was a big mistake. Maybe that's why he lost the fight. Maybe it was a bad calculation where he's stronger on the mat. Holland, Thompson doesn't hide it. He's a striker. He wants to fight strikers all day and twice on Sunday. He doesn't hide that. That's what he wants to do, and he's fan friendly because of that. And you gotta love him. But his strength is not on the floor grappling. Holland is strong there and is stronger than Thompson there. By not taking him, he took him down once, but then he got up. And again, that's what I mean by, showing his, if you will, just that he just being a gladiator, saying, no, I'm not going to beat you that way. I'll beat you at your own game. Showing that mentality. I'm going to beat you at your own game. Come on, get up. I had you on the floor. Maybe I could have went further with it. Maybe I could have got big edge down there. But no, you like to strike. I strike good too. Get up. We're going to do this striking. We're going to do it this way. I'm going to do it your way. And again, bravo. Bravo. But maybe stupid. Maybe cost you a fight. But here's the other thing. Maybe. And again, please understand, I'm taking you places that maybe you haven't been taken before. but they're there to be taken. It's just a matter of knowing that they're there and knowing the key to open that door to go there and see it. These gladiators, guys like Holland in this case, who is as tough as they come, tougher than most people you're ever going to meet. No doubt about it. Brave, tough, code of conduct, everything, warrior. They're human. They're under siege every time they get in that octagon with demons, ninjas trying to come over the wall, where they got to fight that fight too. You don't see it. They don't let you see it. But it's a fight where they have to resist not only the physicality of the man in front of them and the danger of the man in front of them, but the thoughts, the human thoughts, the natural instincts to help yourself in other ways. You're under duress. You're under tremendous fire mentally. Most people will never in their lifetime imagine the cauldron, the furnace of temptation and that they're facing, the fire within, in the mind, that is burning at all times, that is tempting them, giving them outs, saying, do you really want to do this? The human instinct to find a way to survive, to get away. Was there maybe a possibility that Holland, and in no way did he do it in a way where he got out of the fight, in a way where he wasn't ready to take punishment, but is there a possibility where, with that fight going on inside the mind, that's always going on, that intense fight, that pressure, those ninjas coming at you, is there a chance that Holland, during those moments, said, no, I won't go on the floor because I got it now in the back pocket? And it wouldn't be Holland. It would be a voice. It would be a voice that's been with us since we were cavemen. We found a way to beat the saber-toothed tiger, to exist, to get a spear because we couldn't beat him with our fists, to find a way to survive. That goes back to our very existence, our very being, our very genesis, that you find a way to survive, that it's the human instinct to survive, to find sometimes another way, an out. Could it have been possible that Holland said, no, I always have it in my back pocket, that people will say he didn't really lose. He lost because he made a bad decision of not going to where he could have beat the guy. Maybe he could have. Where if he went on the floor where he had him and he stayed on the floor, he could have won because he'd better there. But he did the brave thing. He did the thing that we all recognize, and I recognize as the a man's thing, if you will, as a gladiator's thing, to say, no, I'll beat you at your game. And maybe that's all it was. Maybe that's all it was, Teddy. But maybe it was also a touch of what I just touched on. That if I fight him and show already, because it wasn't just like he decided the whole fight not to go to the floor. See, here's the thing. It was almost like he set it up. Where, I'm just saying, if I have any credence to what I'm saying, he went to the floor with him, had him on the floor, and then got up, let him up, and showed the whole world, come on, get up. Matter of fact, the commentators, how could they not? They commented on it. Look at that. Look at him. He said, no, I'm going to beat you at your own game. He let him up. Come on. We're not going to do that. Not today. So he kind of set the stage for it. If that's a possibility, he went to where I'm saying. Possible. He kind of set the alibi. Where were you the day that this crime got committed? Oh, I was home with my wife. Can I call her? And oh yeah, you can call her. She was there, and I had some neighbors over. They were all there. They saw me. We all saw that he had him on the mat, right, Ken?
Yep.
He let him up, and he waved him in. Come on, we're going to fight. Is it possible that was his way of protecting himself? We all try to protect ourselves emotionally as well as physically. Even subconsciously, that voice from the caveman days that's in all of us, that voice spoke to him and said, yeah, now, if you do lose, you didn't really lose. You're protected. I just protected you. Buddy. Where you can always save yourself emotionally and in all those ways that are so important by saying, and you don't even have to say it. We're saying it. The commentators already said it. He made a mistake. If he kept him on the floor, he might have won. But he was, he wanted to do the gallant thing, the champion thing, the fighter's thing, the man's thing. And he fight him at his fight. So he didn't really lose. He could have won. He lost because he was too gallant. He lost because he made a bad choice. Is that possible? I'm going to tell you it's possible. Okay? And listen, Holland is terrific. He's great. He's braver than 99.9% of the people you're ever going to meet. But he's human. And I just know that I've been in that. I just know that possibility exists. That it exists. Did it happen? Don't know, boss. But I know it has happened in the past. Anyway, like the great Jack Newfield, my friend who I miss all the time, the great journalist, the fighter for underdogs, the great writer once said, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I will second that. That's 2 hours and 10 minutes of nonstop fight action entertainment. There was a lot of fights to cover this weekend. I think we did it very thoroughly, Teddy. That was as good a breakdown as you're going to get anywhere else in the world as far as combat sports goes. And with that, I hope everyone has a great week. And Teddy, unless you got anything else, we're going to say goodbye. And
I got one more thing, one last thing. And it's a great way to say goodbye. Stephen A. Smith's coming.
Oh,
yep.
Buckle up.
People. I don't know exactly when. We don't know the date yet, but he's coming.
That's going to be a good one.
Because my man Matt Sanduli, one of the best in the TV business, one of the best with NY Sports Channel, and used to be the man at ESPN, or one of the men, but for me, he was the man.
Yep.
He was the man. He's talked to him. We've given him a couple dates. As I say to Stephen, joke with him, but my brother from another mother, he's he gonna be a coming. He's gonna be a coming, and
looking forward to that.
The fans, I think, will look forward to that.
That's right. I'm gonna wear a referee jersey for that one, but we'll be ready.
No fighting. No fighting. No fighting.
Well, with that, Teddy, have a great week. Thank you for the insight this week, and we'll be back, guys, next Monday with more of the same. Hope everyone has a great week.